Welcome back to the Quiet Room. Today, we're talking about something that sounds so simple, yet quietly confuses millions of people: happiness. One of our listeners sent in a message that stopped me for a moment. She wrote, "Whenever things start going well in my life, I get nervous. I start waiting for something bad to happen. I can't relax into happiness. It feels like danger." Leo, I think we've all felt that at some point. That moment when life finally feels peaceful, and instead of enjoying it, we start scanning for what could go wrong. Why do we do that? Why are we so afraid of being happy?
That's such an important question, JS. You'd think happiness would be the easiest emotion for the brain to accept, but actually, for many people, it's one of the hardest. Here's the truth. The human brain doesn't seek happiness. It seeks what's familiar. And for a lot of people, what's familiar is pain. If you grew up in chaos, anxiety becomes home. If you spent years being disappointed, hope feels dangerous. If you've lived your life surviving, then peace can feel almost like death to the nervous system. Happiness isn't a neutral state for everyone. For many, it's the unknown. And the unknown to the brain equals threat.
That's so fascinating. So, in a way, it's not that we don't want happiness, it's that our body doesn't trust it?
Exactly. Our nervous system keeps a kind of emotional record of what safety has felt like in the past. If that safety was built in an environment of tension or unpredictability, the body learns vigilance equals survival. So when life finally gets quiet, when things are calm, when no one's yelling, when no crisis is happening, the brain doesn't say, "Oh, wonderful, peace." It says, "Something's off. We've never felt this before. Where's the danger?" That's why some people start fights in moments of peace, or pick apart their own joy. Their nervous system is just trying to return to the baseline it recognizes.
That's so human and heartbreaking. It's like our body keeps us loyal to an old story even when our heart wants a new one.
Yes, and that's one of the most painful parts of healing. Realizing that sometimes the part of you that resists happiness isn't your enemy. It's just the version of you that once kept you safe. We often say, "Why do I keep ruining good things?" But the deeper truth is you're not ruining them. You're protecting yourself from what happiness reminds you of: loss, unpredictability, vulnerability. To the traumatized brain, joy can feel like a setup.
That's powerful. It makes me think about people who say every time something good happens, it never lasts. So they stop trusting good moments altogether.
Exactly. It's what psychologists call foreboding joy. It's the feeling that joy is dangerous because it might be taken away. So instead of fully feeling happiness, we preemptively numb ourselves, just in case. We say things like, "I don't want to get my hopes up," or "It's too good to be true." And that's how we avoid the vulnerability of joy. But here's the thing. You can't selectively numb emotions. When you block out joy to avoid pain, you also block out wonder, awe, connection, and gratitude. You end up safe, but empty.
So, how do we start trusting happiness again? How do we stop treating it like a threat?
We begin by understanding why the fear exists. Let me break it down into layers. The first layer is neurobiological. The brain and body love predictability. When we experience joy, dopamine and serotonin rise, and that's unfamiliar territory for a system trained in stress. Your body might literally interpret joy as instability, so it tries to restore balance, often by sabotaging the moment. The second layer is emotional conditioning. Many people associate happiness with guilt or shame. Maybe you were taught that being happy means you're selfish, or that good times don't last, or that you don't deserve them. So when joy comes, it triggers internal conflict, a clash between your desire to feel good and your belief that you shouldn't. And the third layer is existential. Happiness demands presence. To be truly happy, you have to surrender to the moment, to be here now. But most people find now terrifying because in the now, you have no control. The mind can't plan or prepare, it can only feel. And for those who've built safety on control, that's deeply uncomfortable.
So, happiness feels unsafe because it asks us to let go of control, of protection, of the old identity that knew how to survive.
Exactly. Joy requires surrender. And surrender is the hardest thing for a survivor. When you've built your life on what if, the simplicity of what is feels foreign. But here's the paradox. The very stillness that scares you is the doorway to peace. It's like standing at the edge of a lake. The water looks calm, but you don't trust it. You keep pacing the shore, telling yourself you'll jump in once you're sure it's safe. But the water doesn't change. You do. You learn safety by experiencing safety, not by thinking about it.
That's beautiful. But, Leo, how do you start experiencing safety when your body's been conditioned for chaos? What's the first step towards trusting peace?
The first step is awareness. You can't change what you don't see. Start by noticing the moment you pull away from joy. It might be subtle. You crack a joke when someone compliments you. You change the subject when you feel seen. Or you get restless when life feels too calm. Those are signs that happiness is knocking, but the old program is still guarding the door. Instead of forcing yourself to be happy, just pause. Put a hand on your chest and say, "This feels new." It's okay to feel good. It sounds simple, but what you're doing is teaching your nervous system that safety can exist without tension.
So, the key isn't to chase happiness, but to let the body get comfortable with it.
Exactly. You don't chase joy, you allow it. Think of it like building a tolerance to peace. Every time you experience a small, calm, beautiful moment, maybe a quiet morning coffee or the sunlight on your hand, instead of brushing it off, stay with it for a few breaths. Anchor your attention to the sensations in your body, the warmth, the softness, the lightness. That's how the nervous system learns, repetition and safety. Over time, the body stops searching for the storm. It begins to trust the stillness.
It's almost like teaching your body a new language, one where peace is no longer mistranslated as danger.
Yes, that's a perfect way to put it. Your body has learned the language of adrenaline, urgency, and vigilance. Now you're inviting it to learn the dialect of calm. And at first, it doesn't understand. But with enough consistency, it will. And something magical happens when you stop fearing happiness. You start noticing it everywhere. You realize happiness isn't always fireworks. Sometimes it's just the absence of chaos. It's breathing without waiting for the next blow. That's real happiness.
That's so profound. It makes me think about how people often say, I'll be happy when I get the job, when I find love, when I heal. But that when keeps happiness on the other side of a door that never opens.
Exactly. Conditional happiness is one of the mind's greatest tricks. It says, I'll let you feel good once everything is perfect. But perfection is a moving target, so you keep postponing joy in the name of self-improvement. Real happiness doesn't begin when everything aligns. It begins when you stop waiting for permission to feel it. When you can sit with what is, the unfinished, the imperfect, and still whisper, there's peace here too.
So, what you're saying is happiness isn't a reward, it's a practice.
Exactly. Happiness isn't the finish line, It's a muscle. And like any muscle, it strengthens through small, consistent repetitions. Every time you notice beauty, you're training it. Every time you choose gratitude over worry, you're rewiring it. Every time you let yourself laugh without guilt, you're teaching your body that joy is safe. And eventually, the fear dissolves, not because you forced it to, but because your nervous system finally believes you're not in danger anymore.
That's so healing. It's almost like happiness becomes less about chasing euphoria and more about returning to a baseline of quiet safety.
Exactly. Most people think happiness is about excitement, but the deepest form of happiness is peace. It's not the rush of joy, it's the absence of resistance. It's waking up without that inner war. It's being gentle with yourself when things go wrong. It's feeling gratitude, not because life is perfect, but because you finally stopped fighting it. That's real happiness.
That's beautiful, Leo. So before we close, can you share a simple exercise, something our listeners can do today to start building that trust with happiness?
Of course. Here's something simple, yet powerful. When you wake up tomorrow, before you check your phone, before you start thinking about your day, pause. Place one hand over your heart and take 3 slow breaths. On each breath, repeat quietly to yourself, "It's safe to feel good." That single sentence begins to reprogram your subconscious because remember, your mind follows your body's lead. If the body feels safe, the mind can relax. Then, throughout the day, whenever you notice something beautiful, a kind word, a bit of sunlight, even the taste of your morning coffee, say softly in your mind, "This is happiness too." You're teaching your system that joy doesn't have to be earned. It can simply be received.
That's such a gentle way to begin. Not chasing joy, just learning to recognize it.
Exactly. The more you recognize it, the more your body believes it. And one day, you'll realize you no longer flinch when good things happen. You'll breathe easier in peace. That's when you'll know you're no longer afraid of happiness.
That's beautiful, Leo. And to everyone listening, maybe tonight, before you fall asleep, let this thought settle in your heart. You are allowed to feel good. You are allowed to rest in joy. You don't have to wait for life to be perfect to feel peaceful. Because happiness isn't something you chase, it's something you remember. You've been listening to The Quiet Room with JS and Dr. Leo Hart. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who struggles to let themselves be happy. And if today was hard, that's okay. Maybe happiness is just you sitting here, breathing, and knowing that peace is on its way.